What's up? You. Yeah.
My religion of Notorious, that's the underworld. He was like on the Mummy, the Black Book. So this was them.
There's a couple things you have to accept when you walk into these walls, and one is you may not walk out.
In the unforgiving world behind bars, where every action carries weight and every misstep could mean the end, there exist men whose names strike fear into even the bravest souls. These are the individuals whose very presence commands respect and whose reputations precede them like ominous shadows in the night. But who are these terrifying figures, and what has earned them such a notorious status within the walls of prisons worldwide? Join us as we uncover the truths about the most feared men in prison. Number 10. Charles Bronson. Michael Ivor Charles, popularly known as Charles Bronson but born Michael Gordon Peterson on December 6, 1952, posed an enduring challenge to British law enforcement throughout his criminal career, even continuing to be a thorn in their side while incarcerated. From a young age, Bronson exhibited a tendency for violence and aggression, engaging in numerous street fights and altercations that solidified his reputation as a formidable combatant. However, it was his involvement in a significant crime that truly catapulted him into the criminal underworld spotlight. In 1974, Bronson attempted to rob a post office in Luton, an endeavor that swiftly escalated into a violent confrontation with law enforcement. Armed with a sawed-off shotgun, Bronson engaged in a fierce shootout, injuring multiple officers before his eventual apprehension. Bronson's subsequent trial showcased his volatile and unpredictable demeanor. He frequently disrupted court proceedings, assaulting prison guards and even his defense counsel. His explosive outbursts and violent conduct earned him a reputation as an unpredictable and highly dangerous criminal. Due to his erratic behavior, Bronson was deemed mentally unstable and transferred to the high-security psychiatric hospital Broadmoor. However, even within the confines of Broadmoor, Bronson's tendency for violence persisted. He assaulted fellow patients and staff members and attempted to take hostages on multiple occasions, posing an ongoing challenge to hospital authorities. It was during his tenure at Broadmoor he adopted the name Charles Bronson, inspired by the renowned Hollywood actor. As Bronson's notoriety grew, so did the measures taken to contain him. He was transferred between various maximum security prisons, including Parkhurst, Wakefield, and Belmarsh. Each relocation was accompanied by stringent security protocols as authorities struggled to manage his violent outbursts. Bronson's persistent aggression and defiance of prison regulations resulted in extended periods of solitary confinement, where he spent up to 23 hours a day isolated from others. Despite facing harsh confinement conditions, Bronson dedicated himself to physical fitness and bodybuilding. He authored the widely read Solitary Fitness, where he not only recounted his life, but also shared fitness tips that resonated with readers. Bronson's violent reputation earned him admiration among some and fear from others due to his unpredictable nature. Yet, it was his audacious exploits within prison that truly solidified his legendary status. In 1998, Bronson masterminded a hostage-taking incident at HMP Belmarsh. Armed with improvised weapons, he seized 2 fellow inmates as hostages, demanding a helicopter for his escape. The standoff ensued for hours before authorities managed to regain control. This bold act further entrenched Bronson's image as a dangerous and unpredictable criminal. Throughout his incarceration, Bronson continued to exhibit violent behavior, engaging in numerous altercations with inmates and prison staff, leaving a wake of chaos behind him. With each passing year, his reputation as a formidable and mysterious figure only grew stronger. Since 1999, Bronson has immersed himself in writing poetry and creating artworks. He has authored 11 books, including his self-penned work, Lunyology in My Own Words, in 2008. His talent has been recognized with 11 Kessler Trust Awards for his poetry and art. In 23, Bronson showcased his drawings at an exhibition, aiming to bolster his case for parole by proving he could pursue a meaningful occupation outside prison if released. Number 9. Nico Allen Jenkins. Nico Allen Jenkins was born on September 16, 1986, with a heritage tied to an Omaha chief and had a life marked by turmoil and violence. His troubled journey led him to prison for carjacking, where he served 10.5 years. During his incarceration, Jenkins's violent tendencies and mental health issues were overlooked, leaving him without the help he needed. When he was released on July 30th, 2013, there was no proper support or supervision in place. This lack of oversight set the stage for a horrific series of events just 2 weeks later. On August 11th, 2013, Jenkins embarked on a terrifying killing spree that shocked the community of Omaha, Nebraska. He lured two men, 26-year-old Juan Uribe Pena and 25-year-old Jorge C. Cajiga Ruiz, to Spring Lake Park by promising a sexual encounter. Once there, he brutally shot them in the head and robbed them, abandoning their bodies in a white Ford pickup truck near a city swimming pool at 18th and F Street. Only 8 days after this double murder, Jenkins struck again. On August 19th, he killed 36-year-old Curtis Bradford, a fellow inmate he had met in prison. They had posed for a friendly photo just the day before, which was later found on Jenkins's phone. The image of them smiling and embracing stood in stark contrast to the grim reality as Jenkins shot Bradford outside a detached garage. Jenkins's final victim was 33-year-old Andrea Kruger, a mother of 3. On August 21st, he shot her multiple times with a 12-gauge shotgun. Her body was discovered in the early morning hours, lying on the road. Her vehicle, a 2002 Ford Expedition, was found later, abandoned with signs of an attempted arson at 43rd and Charles Street. The brutal nature of Jenkins's crimes was captured on surveillance footage, leading to his arrest on August 30th at the home of his 22-year-old girlfriend, Chelsea Blackley. During a lengthy 8-hour interview with the police, Jenkins confessed to the murders. He claimed that he was acting under the influence of an ancient serpent god named Apophis, adding a chilling and bizarre element to his already horrifying actions. Jenkins's trial was nothing short of chaotic. He chose to represent himself, displaying unpredictable and disturbing behavior throughout the proceedings. At times, he spoke in tongues, howled, and laughed during the recounting of his victims' final moments, creating a chilling atmosphere in the courtroom. Despite his erratic actions and claims of mental illness, a psychiatrist evaluated him and declared him competent to stand trial. The trial ended with Jenkins being sentenced to death by a 3-judge panel consisting of Judge Peter Bataillon, Judge Thomas Otepka, and Judge Dwayne Dougherty. Alongside the death penalty for the murders, he received an additional 450 years for weapons charges. Jenkins's case brought to light serious questions about the effectiveness of the correctional system, especially in managing inmates with mental health issues. The community of Omaha was left to deal with the aftermath of Jenkins's horrifying crimes. His name became synonymous with terror and fear. The impact of his actions was profound, leaving the families of his victims shattered and struggling to rebuild their lives. During the trial, Juan Uribe Pena's mother, Maria Uribe, and Jorge Cajiga Ruiz's sister, Maria Cajiga Ruiz, shared touching stories about their loved ones and the devastating void left by their loss. Curtis Bradford's mother, Susan Bradford, and Andrea Kruger's husband, Michael Kruger, also gave heartfelt testimonies about their grief and the ongoing struggle to cope with the senseless violence that had claimed their family members. Jenkins had a documented history of mental health issues, including schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder. He had filed a federal lawsuit claiming that his mental health problems had been worsened by his solitary confinement and neglected by prison officials. Number 8. Richard Lee McNair. Richard Lee McNair, born on December 19, 1958, wasn't your typical troublemaker. His run-ins with the law included serious charges like murder, attempted murder, and burglary, leading to 2 life sentences. However, what truly makes McNair stand out is his incredible knack for breaking out of prison. McNair's journey into infamy began in 1987, when a botched robbery resulted in a murder conviction. Instead of accepting a life in prison, McNair became fixated on freedom. His escapades were nothing short of cinematic. For his first escape, McNair slipped out of his handcuffs using only lip balm and sheer determination, disappearing like a magician. Despite being recaptured, his hunger for liberty persisted. In his second escape, 4 years later, he navigated through ventilation shafts, evading capture once more. But it was his third escape in April 2006 that cemented McNair's status as a master of evasion. In a bold move, he concealed himself cleverly among a stack of used postal mail bags, leaving even seasoned law enforcement officers scratching their heads in disbelief. On that fateful day, in the afternoon hours, McNair was jogging near some railroad track when an observant police officer caught sight of him. McNair, always quick on his feet, concocted a story for the officer, insisting he hadn't escaped from prison at all. Instead, he claimed he was merely out for exercise in the area. He even went as far as fabricating details about staying with his brother at a nearby hotel, skillfully sidestepping the truth of his escape. Not content with avoiding capture on home ground, he ventured boldly into Canada twice, desperately trying to evade the authorities' pursuit. Fast forward to 2007, well over a year since his daring escape, McNair's luck finally ran out when Canadian police spotted him behind the wheel of a stolen car. Under interrogation, McNair pulled another disappearing act, slipping away from their grasp once more. During his time on the run, McNair was far from idle. He mastered the art of creating fake IDs and used his computer skills to forge driver's licenses while closely monitoring media coverage of his escapades. His audacious actions earned him a place on Canada's 15 Most Wanted list, not once, but multiple times. Then, in November 2007, an alert police officer noticed a van with suspicious homemade tinted windows. Recording the license plate, he promptly reported it. The following day, another officer spotted the van, sparking a chase. When McNair eventually parked and tried to flee on foot, law enforcement apprehended him. Today, McNair resides in ADX Florence, a supermax prison where inmates spend 23 hours a day in their cells, under strict guard to prevent any possibility of escape. Number 7. Thomas Edward Silverstein. Thomas Edward Silverstein was born on February 4, 1952, in Long Beach, California, to Virginia Conway. Virginia divorced her first husband while pregnant with Silverstein and later married Thomas Conway, whom Silverstein believed was his biological father. After Virginia divorced Thomas, she married Sid Silverstein, who legally adopted Thomas. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood, Silverstein was a shy and seemingly awkward child who often faced bullying. His mother, Virginia, encouraged him to stand up for himself, warning that if he returned home after a fight crying, she would punish him again. In 1971, at just 19 years old, Silverstein was sent to San Quentin Prison in California for armed robbery. Released on parole after 4 years, he soon found himself arrested again, this time with his father Thomas Conway and cousin Gerald Hoff for 3 armed robberies. In 1977, Silverstein was sentenced to 15 years in prison and sent to the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. While at Leavenworth, Silverstein became associated with the Aryan Brotherhood, a neo-Nazi prison gang known for criminal activities. In 1980, he was convicted of murdering inmate Danny Atwell, allegedly because Atwell refused to smuggle heroin into prison. This conviction earned Silverstein a life sentence, and he was transferred to the high-security United States Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois. At USP Marion, Silverstein was placed in the infamous Control Unit, a form of solitary confinement for the most dangerous inmates. He lived under constant surveillance, with a light that never turned off and strict limitations on communication and movement. In 1981, Silverstein faced accusations of murdering Robert Chappelle, a member of the DC Blacks prison gang. Alongside fellow inmate Clayton Fountain, he was found guilty and received an additional life sentence. Fortunately, Silverstein escaped the death penalty since federal capital punishment was not reinstated at that time. Throughout the trial, Silverstein adamantly proclaimed his innocence. While Silverstein was on trial for Chappelle's murder, Raymond Lee Cadillac Smith, the national leader of the DC Blacks, was moved into Marion Prison's control unit by the Bureau of Prisons. According to prison records, Smith immediately began plotting against Silverstein upon his arrival. "I told Cadillac I didn't harm Chappelle, but he didn't believe me. He threatened me," Silverstein recalled. Everyone knew But no one intervened. The guards seemed to encourage our conflict. Eventually, Silverstein and Clayton Fountain assaulted Cadillac, fatally stabbing him 67 times with makeshift weapons. They then displayed Smith's body to other inmates, leading to Silverstein receiving another life sentence. On October 22, 1983, Silverstein killed correction officer Merle Klutz at USP Marion. During a shower break, Silverstein manipulated Klutz into positioning himself between Silverstein and other officers. Outside another inmate's cell, Randy Gomez passed Silverstein a homemade knife and unlocked his handcuffs using a makeshift key. Silverstein then attacked Klutz, stabbing him multiple times. Silverstein claimed he acted because Klutz had been harassing him. In 1986, Silverstein was tried, convicted, and sentenced to life in solitary confinement for Officer Klutz's murder. He endured 36 years in solitary confinement until his death on May 11, 2019, at St. Anthony Hospital in Lakewood, Colorado. Silverstein was 67 years old and passed away due to complications following heart surgery. Number 6. Alvin Francis Karpis. Alvin Francis Karpis, originally Albin Francis Karpovicius, born on August 10, 1907, was a Canadian-American criminal of Lithuanian descent, notorious for leading the Barker Karpis gang during the 1930s. His criminal journey began early, mingling with gamblers, bootleggers, and pimps by the age of 10. At 19, he was sentenced to a decade behind bars for attempted burglary, but managed to escape, teaming up with fellow inmate Lawrence Duvall for a string of crimes. Karpis's life took a pivotal turn when he crossed paths with Fred Barker at the Kansas State Penitentiary. Together, they formed the infamous Barker Karpis gang, specializing in bank heists, kidnappings, and ruthless efficiency. Their notoriety peaked with the killing of Sheriff C. Roy Kelly, cementing Karpis's reputation as a formidable figure in organized crime. The downfall of the Barker Karpis gang was swift and brutal, marked by escalating violence. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, intensified their pursuit, leading to a pivotal moment with the kidnapping of Edward Bremer, which drew the ire of President Franklin Roosevelt. The relentless efforts of the FBI culminated in Karpis's dramatic capture on May 1, 1936, in New Orleans. He faced a swift trial and was sentenced to life imprisonment, becoming the longest-serving inmate in Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, where he spent 26 years. Released on parole in 1969 after more than 3 decades in prison, Karpis confronted a world vastly changed from the one he had left. No longer feared as a criminal mastermind, he struggled to reintegrate into society. Deported to Canada, he faced challenges securing a passport due to his previous fingerprint removal. Despite these obstacles, he settled in Montreal, attempting to lead a normal life. Reflecting on his tumultuous past, Karpis penned his memoirs, offering a candid account of his criminal exploits and time in Alcatraz. His writings revealed a man struggling with the ordinary challenges of everyday life after enduring a lifetime of infamy. In 1973, seeking solace, Karpis relocated to Spain, where he passed away on August 26, 1979. Initially deemed a suicide, his death was later determined to be from natural causes, marking the end of a complex and storied life. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. In the dimly lit confines of the maximum security prison, whispers spread like wildfire about the man known simply as the Titan. Standing at an imposing height, his frame towered above even the burliest of officers. Chains encircled his neck, heavy links cascading down to his shackled hands, a sight that struck fear into the bravest hearts. Rumors of his prowess circulated among inmates and guards alike. They spoke of a past shrouded in mystery, of crimes so heinous that they defied belief. Yet no one dared to approach him, not even in the desolate exercise yard where sunlight struggled to pierce the thick walls. Then, one fateful day, the prison's surveillance cameras captured him. Grainy footage revealed the Titan in his stark reality, an enigma in chains, a specter of confinement. The image spread like wildfire beyond the prison walls, captivating the public's imagination. Newspapers splashed headlines declaring, "Most feared man in prison caught on camera for the first time," igniting debates about justice and punishment. Number 5. Lucy Letby. In a case that has stunned the world, Nurse Lucy Letby, born on January 4, 1990, has been convicted as one of the most prolific child killers in recent British history. Letby, a neonatal nurse from Chester, a city near Liverpool in northern England, began her career at Chester Hospital in 2011. Her role involved caring for a wide range of babies, needing various levels of medical support. Initially, Letby was seen as a hopeful figure in the neonatal unit, providing care to vulnerable infants. However, this perception drastically changed over time. During her tenure as a neonatal nurse, there was a notable increase in the number of baby deaths and serious health crises. Dr. Ravi Gayam, a senior doctor at Chester Hospital, voiced concerns about the rising death toll and critical incidents linked to Letby. He noticed behaviors that raised suspicions about her involvement in these tragic events. Dr. Gayam raised alarms with hospital authorities in 2015 and 2016, but his warnings were initially disregarded. This oversight had devastating consequences for the innocent infants under Letby's care. As the incidents continued to mount, Letby's colleagues began noticing unsettling behaviors from her. They witnessed occasions where Letby appeared dismissive or even hostile towards co-workers trying to assist during critical moments. Lisa Walker, a colleague of Letby, recounted an incident where Letby reprimanded a co-worker attempting to help a distressed infant. Walker expressed her shock, stating, "I was taken aback because in such situations, you can never have enough help." Letby's behavior stood in stark contrast to the collaborative and supportive atmosphere expected in a neonatal unit, raising significant concerns among the staff. Letby's colleagues could no longer ignore the growing signs of her peculiar behavior. Suspicion swirled among them, suggesting something ominous was happening under the guise of caregiving. The whispers of concern amplified, centering squarely on Letby. In May 2017, the Cheshire Constabulary launched an investigation into the deaths and serious health crises occurring in the neonatal unit at Chester Hospital. Reports of Letby's questionable conduct and potential involvement in these tragic incidents had reached authorities. Following their inquiries, Letby was arrested in July 2018, marking a critical moment in the quest for answers. Letby's trial commenced in October 2022 at Manchester Crown Court. Throughout the proceedings, the prosecution presented a compelling array of evidence against Letby, including handwritten notes discovered at her residence. These notes depicted a troubling self-image, where Letby described herself in stark terms as a terrible and wicked person, confessing to intentionally causing harm to the infants. Despite facing 22 charges, Letby maintained her innocence, steadfastly asserting that she had always strived to provide the best care for the babies entrusted to her care. Letby's defense team posited an alternative explanation, suggesting that the deaths could be linked to alleged plumbing issues within the hospital, such as incidents of raw sewage leaking onto the nursery floor. However, the prosecution countered with their evidence, alleging that Letby administered lethal air injections to at least 12 of the infants in question. According to prosecutor Nick Johnson, this method emerged as Letby's favored means of causing harm or attempting to end the lives of children in this case. The trial spanned 10 months and involved intricate medical evidence. Finally, on August 18, 2023, the jury reached their decision. Lucy Letby was found guilty of 14 of the 22 charges she faced. Consequently, she received a whole life order for each offense, ensuring she would remain incarcerated for the rest of her life. Number 4. Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader, born in Kansas in 1945, nurtured dark fantasies of torturing and murdering women from a young age. Yet it wasn't until January 1974 that he committed his first known murders, forever marking his name with infamy. His initial victims were Joseph Otero, aged 38, Julie Otero, aged 33, and their 2 children, Joseph Otero Jr. and Josephine Otero, aged 9 and 11 respectively. Rader's brutality was stark as he bound, tortured, and mercilessly killed the entire family, initiating a series of appalling crimes. Within months, in April 1974, Rader struck again. His victim this time was 21-year-old Catherine Bright, another tragic victim of his sadistic urges. He bound, strangled, and cruelly ended her life. From 1985 to 1988, Rader continued his spree, leaving behind a community gripped by fear and questions. Maureen Hedge and Vicky Wegerle were among those whose lives were abruptly cut short by his violent acts. Rader's 10th and final known victim, Dolores E. Davis, met her tragic end in January 1991. Throughout his reign of terror, Rader led a seemingly ordinary life. He held a respected position as president of Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita and even served as a Cub Scout leader. This facade of normalcy allowed him to seamlessly blend into the community, hiding the darkness within. However, as the body count rose, so did the pressure on law enforcement to apprehend the notorious BTK killer. Little did Rader realize that his insatiable craving for attention and notoriety would ultimately lead to his downfall. In 2005, Rader was finally caught after he sent a floppy disk to a TV station, detailing his next intended victim, which led investigators to trace it back to him. He was arrested, charged with 10 murders, and sentenced to life without parole. Despite his capture, Rader's gruesome crimes extended beyond these murders, involving trophies and suspected links to other unsolved cases. His refusal to cooperate has kept him in prison, where he serves multiple life sentences at the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. Number 3. Charles Edmund Cullen. Charles Edmund Cullen, an American serial killer, hid his heinous crimes behind the trusted guise of a nurse, a profession dedicated to saving lives. Over 16 chilling years, he moved among various New Jersey hospitals, where he confessed to possibly ending the lives of 40 patients, with 29 confirmed murders. The idea that someone entrusted with caring for the sick could betray that trust and prey on their vulnerable patients is truly horrifying. The nightmare began to unravel on December 12, 2003, when Cullen was finally arrested. Initially facing charges for 1 murder and 1 attempted murder, it soon became evident that the scope of his crimes was far broader. During interrogation just days later, Cullen admitted to killing Florian Gull and attempting to murder Jin Kyung Han, both patients at Somerset Medical Center. Shockingly, he hinted that his victims could number as many as 40 over his career. By April 2004, Cullen pleaded guilty in a New Jersey court to 13 murders and 2 attempted murders, all committed through lethal injections. In exchange for his cooperation, prosecutors spared him the death penalty. Later, he confessed to 3 additional murders. Throughout the legal proceedings, the disturbing question lingered. How could someone violate their oath to not harm, especially in a profession dedicated to healing? As the court sessions unfolded, Cullen showed no remorse. He even taunted the judge, prompting measures to silence him with a gag. In a chilling twist, Cullen agreed to assist in identifying more victims as part of his plea deal. Finally, on March 2, 2006, Judge Armstrong in New Jersey handed down 11 consecutive life sentences. Cullen, now confined in New Jersey State Prison in Trenton, will not be eligible for parole until he reaches the age of 443. Number 2. John Wayne Gase. John Wayne Gase struck terror into even the most hardened inmates. His brutal crimes left an enduring scar on the prison where he served time. Gacy's troubled childhood under an abusive father set a dark path. Despite a brief stint in prison in 1968, he escalated to murder in 1972, starting a spree that baffled law enforcement for years. His outward charm as a businessman and clown masked a sinister side. Beneath his house, investigators unearthed a grim graveyard holding 26 young men's remains, revealing the depth of his atrocities. Identifying Gacy's victims was a painstaking process, relying on dental records and X-rays amid chilling discoveries. Survivors' testimonies exposed Gacy's adeptness at deception and evasion. His 1980 trial captivated the nation, contrasting claims of multiple personalities with the prosecution's portrayal of calculated evil. The case highlighted flaws in tracking serial offenders and supporting victims' families. Gacy's conviction on 33 counts of murder brought closure, yet his legacy of fear persists, tarnishing the innocence of Norwood Park Township and haunting those touched by his crimes. Number 1. Rodney Alcala. Rodney Alcala's tumultuous journey began on August 23, 1943 in San Antonio, Texas, where he was born as Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Buquor. His early years were marked by upheaval when his family moved to Mexico, only to be abandoned by his father, a void that haunted him throughout his life. Seeking a fresh start, Alcala and his family resettled in the bustling city of Los Angeles. During his teenage years, Alcala enlisted in the Army at 17, hoping to find purpose, but his military career was short-lived. By 1964, he suffered a breakdown and was discharged after being diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, revealing the first signs of darkness within him. Determined to turn his life around, Alcala pursued studies in fine arts at California State University, where he explored his passion for photography. He later transferred to the University of California, Los Angeles, graduating in 1968. Despite his academic achievements, Alcala's true nature remained hidden beneath a facade of artistic pursuits. After graduation, Alcala, under the alias John Berger, relocated to New York City in an attempt to start afresh and escape his troubled past. Tall and charismatic, he used his charm and intelligence to lure unsuspecting women. Posing as a fashion photographer, he promised his victims glamorous opportunities, but instead led them to their tragic deaths. Among his first known victims was Cornelia Crilly, a 23-year-old New Yorker brutally raped and strangled in her apartment in June 1971. Her murder sent shockwaves through the city. Another victim, Ellen Hover, vanished in July 1977 after arranging to meet John Berger, a detail that later tied back to Alcala. In 2012, Alcala confessed to the murders of Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Hover. He received a sentence of 25 years to life, contingent upon any release from custody in California. Although justice finally caught up with him, the scars left by his actions continue to haunt those he victimized, leaving a lasting impact on their families and communities. Which of these prisoners do you consider most terrifying? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.